Well, folks, thanks for tuning in again. Our friends in Canada, the US, and around the world, thanks for the increasing numbers of people who are tuning in to Stockwell Day-to-Day News. We try and give you a smattering of the big headlines across Canada, the US, and some internationally, a look at the markets and some comments on culture and the pretty amazing things we're going to be looking at today. You want to stay tuned, everything from markets to a couple of tragedies in the US, and then some things happening on the culture front that I think you're going to find interesting, with a couple of the big blockbusters like Stranger Things coming to an end, and Zootopia #2 is really hitting it out of the park in the theaters right now. So let's jump right into it. Pipeline news coming out today. There's a lot of anticipation in Canada that the Prime Minister may be actually getting the message that Canadian oil and gas and liquid natural gas shipped around the world will actually reduce emissions, CO2 emissions around the world, because it can help countries like China lower their dependence on coal. It can help countries like India lower their dependence on burning dung. Millions of people in India, as we've said before, have to rely on burning cow dung to heat their homes and cook their food. And of course, it will reduce the stranglehold that Putin has on European nations who have to pay him for his oil and gas. So in fact, the European nations, which are standing up for Ukraine as they should, are actually financing the war on Ukraine. Canadian natural gas, Canadian refined oil products shipped to these countries and around the world can have a hugely beneficial effect. But it's Canadians themselves, or groups of Canadians, who are opposed to that, it appears. And Prime Minister Carney seems to be willing to take that on. We always see in the news when it comes to First Nations and all the First Nations group that are opposed to any kind of development like this that would reduce emissions and help the planet. But there are many First Nations groups that are not opposed to pipelines, and that has to be noted. So Carney's, one of his former environment minister, Stephen Guilbeault, who got moved out of that portfolio, is supposed to be very upset with the announcement that's coming out today. A lot of people are expecting that there's going to be a big announcement from Prime Minister Carney that the second very needed pipeline is going to go ahead. I'm hedging my bets on that a bit, folks. Take a look and watch. We'll all see. But I don't think it's going to be wide open or as open as it should be to really make an impact on the world. I think Prime Minister Carney, because so many of his caucus get nervous about mainstream media criticizing them on things to do with the environment, I think there's going to be a bit of a withholding. I don't know that he's going to be saying it's all green lights, folks. So let's take a look and let's watch and wait, see if there's going to be some breakthrough in thinking. Again, in the polls today, the ongoing attack on the leader of the Conservative opposition, Pierre Poilievre, it's almost laughable, except it's not funny, especially if you're on the receiving end. I know what that's like, having been Canada's leader of the opposition. And the media likes to stay away from the fact that the polls show the Liberals and the Conservatives are actually not that far apart when it comes to voter intention. Liberals have moved back up now a couple of points following some of their budget announcement. There's usually a budget bump that happens for a government when it announces it's going to be spending wildly on all kinds of groups. But what that does, the effect that this has when a leader is attacked, and of course mainstream media is subsidized by the Liberals, so the attacks on Conservatives will always be greater. It makes your own, as Jean Chrétien used to call them, it makes many of your own MPs nervous Nellies. They get worried about the polling. They get worried at the end of the day about their own constituencies. And eventually that causes upset in the ranks and talk of getting a new leader. The precise same thing has been happening with John Rustad, the leader of the Conservatives in British Columbia. So just a word to Conservatives, especially the elected ones. The people who support the Conservative Party are really not that bent out of shape as you, the MPs, are. And I'll guarantee you, if there's a decision made to move Pierre Poilievre out, because mainstream media doesn't like him, and put in the new guy or the new girl, they'll have a brief honeymoon period, and then the attacks will resume once again. Mainstream media loves to show conservative parties in apparent chaos. So stay focused, stick to the principles that got you this far, and don't just get moved by every, as we say, every shift of wind from mainstream media. Let's watch and see what happens there. I'm going to give a word of congratulations to CBC, their investigative journalism team. They were the ones that did a lot of work. You may be seeing this in the news about the chief financial officer in the city of Surrey. And she is, now what I'm going to be saying, these are allegations not yet proven in court, but she has been removed from her office, and she voluntarily also stepped away from things. What the allegations are is that for almost 10 years, she's been siphoning off money and sticking it in different accounts and then using it to support her own bakery business that she's been running on the side, apparently along with her mother. Now, CBC had to really dig into this, and they stayed with it. They did not get shaken off the trail, and apparently now there may be charges forthcoming. Like, how could that much money, over $2 million, be siphoned off? Well, it happens when you don't have the proper audits in place. Nobody is immune from the temptation of seeing what they can get away with as long as they think they're not going to get caught. And this is why you have auditors general. This is why every company needs an independent audit function, accounting groups, not from within, but from the outside. And this woman has allegedly been getting away with a lot of stuff, over $2 million. And so while I congratulate the CBC on their diligence there, I would say I would like to see the CBC be just as diligent in the misspending of the federal government. They'll report things now and then, but they haven't given a whole lot of fanfare to the reports from the parliamentary budget officer. That officer was set up actually by the Stephen Harper government, recognizing that you have to be independently audited. When it comes to money, you cannot audit yourself. And the extreme reports of concern coming from the provincial budget, the parliamentary budget officer about where Canada is headed because liberal government spending is out of control, the debt and the deficit is increasing. And it got some attention, but not as much. So I'd encourage CBC, don't just pick on the woman out there in Surrey. I mean, that was good work on your part. And also, when it comes to First Nations, many First Nations do a great job of auditing, but more and more, it's looked at that if you audit their spending, you're somehow going against their natural rights just to be able to spend all the taxpayer money they want. We hear concerns, and they are rising in some First Nations groups, not all, some do a great job, but that the chiefs are not being properly audited, and they are, in many cases, or let's just say in some cases, accruing great benefits to themselves and to their families, and others on the First Nation land in which it may be, are suffering. I can tell you, as a member of Parliament in a constituency in British Columbia, for the years I was there were something like 19 First Nations groups. And you know what? They're just like any other group. Some do a great job and some don't. There's no, there is no stipulation in human nature that says one particular ethnic group is going to be better than the other. We all need to be audited. So I would encourage CBC, show the same degree of intensity that you did on this woman in Surrey when you're looking at the federal budget, and also in the area of some of the First Nations spending. We'd like to see a little bit of balance there. And talking about balance and reporting, we're hearing now, not just CBC is going to be doing this, but weather reporting is going to be taking yet another notch upwards in terms of how they're going to quickly be able to let people like you and me know when these terrible weather events are going to be happening. Listen, we need good weather reporting, and it's good to be advised and warned ahead of time. But what's evolved over the last 10, 15 years, especially with the so-called, the advent of the climate extremists, weather reporting is, in terms of how it's done, is just as important as anything else on television or on your devices, because it's designed to attract as they say, to attract eyeballs, to attract you and me. The more that media can get us watching anything that they have, that helps their advertising ratings, because number of clicks, then they're able to catalog that, and then they go to the big advertisers and say, look how many millions we've got watching at this particular time of day or on that particular time of day. And weather reporting has become a really important source of income and revenue, whether you're a television station or you're online. The more people you can get watching, well, you're not going to get a lot of people watching if you're going to have a boring weather report. So it has to be sensationalized, along with much of it also being true. Add to that the fact that many mainstream media outlets are absolutely trying to convince us that the world is going to be ending very, very soon because of climate change. And you get a powerful temptation to have very sensationalized weather reporting. Some people even call it weather porn, because it's designed to attract us and get our attention. Now what we're being told is that they're going to use more of a color coding system. So, yellow will be one level of urgency, orange will be another, and of course, red. When you see the red flashing, you're going to watch and you're going to be intent on not changing the channel when they're talking about what's coming at us. And some of those events are true and needed to be reported. There's no question about that. So watch for, here's my prediction. Will we see an increase in bad weather? First of all, many reports are saying there has not been a significant increase in storm weather around the world, etc. You get nasty storms and you get nasty hurricanes and tornadoes and floods. But when you do a projection over the last 75 years, there has been way more reporting of it, but not maybe that much more in the terms of incidents. But brace yourselves, you're going to hear those fun phrases like, are you ready for this one? Polar vortex. That basically means it's winter. But when you hear it, brace yourself. There's a polar vortex coming. And then, of course, weather bomb is another one. You're going to hear that. It's not bad weather. It's not a storm. There's a weather bomb approaching. All of these things, folks, are guaranteed to get us focused and watching. So before you become overly anxious, just keep all that in mind. And as I said, my weather prediction is, whether the weather gets worse or not, we're going to be seeing a lot more of the red alert. Talking about people seeing red, a recent poll just out in the last couple of days in Canada, it says Canadians, majority of Canadians are very upset with the U.S. ambassador, Haikstra, and he used some potty mouth language about Canada, and he said some mean things about us, and quite rightly, we're very upset that he said mean things about Canadians. Can I just say something here? That we go traditionally in Canada, it's actually our thing to be hurling insults nonstop towards the U.S. president. We have existing parliamentarians and former parliamentarians. They don't hesitate at all to call President Trump all kinds of names, to call Americans all kinds of names. It's part of Canada's national pastime all through the decades, to be hurling word bombs across the border at our American friends. And then when they turn around and say some mean words to us, it's like we collapse. Canadians, come on, this is embarrassing. We want to talk about elbows up, let's get our elbows up. Let's get used to the name calling when it comes to us, just like we love to dish it out on the Americans. Let's give our heads a shake there. The very tragic story of two National Guard officers shot in an ambush in the U.S. It was all set up. It was planned. These brave men and women in uniform, they rush to events to help people when they get these warnings. And in this case, both the National Guard officers are in critical condition. It was an ambush deliberately set up. They were shot in point blank range. And it was by a former Afghanistan individual who had actually worked with the U.S., even worked with the CIA while he was in Afghanistan. One of the downsides of the rapid withdrawal from Afghanistan under the Biden regime, which was such a disaster, it happened so rapidly, and absolute chaos and people being killed that didn't have to be. One of that was many people got out that should have been more thoroughly checked. And I'll say at the same breath, many people, and we're very thankful for this, so many Afghans were able to get out. These are people who had helped the Canadian forces, had helped the U.S. forces, genuinely believed and wanted to see freedom in their country, which didn't come to be, and the Taliban taking over again. But some got out who actually were double agents, and this was the case. And our hearts go out to the folks that are involved there, but it underlines the degree to which you do have to check with individuals. And so here we have this person who appeared to be a friend of the U.S. and working with them and living with them, sharing information, and then suddenly turns around and shoots literally point blank in the face these officers. A little bit similar to the same way, because this person was an Islamist extremist. The same way the Islamist extremists worked, it's part of how they operate, is to befriend the people that they are later going to kill, even while they're planning it. We certainly saw this in Gaza on October 7th. The stories of some of those people who were doing the killing and the torturing and the raping were actually Gazans who were working with and in the homes and the gardens of people who lived in those the kibbutzim, in the kibbutzes. So it's actually a tactic of theirs to befriend people, show them love, and the whole time you're planning on killing them. Very tragic. We hope those officers will pull through at a critical condition and some kind of sanity being restored. As I said, and as I predicted last week, the markets are staying somewhat vibrant. And as I continue to predict, the Fed rate in December is probably going to come down. That'll continue to keep markets fairly active. And so my sense is, and don't take my predictions, don't go basing the family farm on my predictions, but I do think we're going to see some ongoing strength in the markets rather than volatility. The so-called AI bubble, I think we're going to see some crashes in AI firms themselves, but an overall bubble bursting, not so sure. The demand there keeps growing. But do keep in mind that when the market and the percentage of the market is based on a few companies, like the three big guys, so-called right now, NVIDIA and Alphabet and Apple, are showing a real strength and growing. It only takes 2 or 3 companies. If they start to post some negative earnings, that will affect the whole market. So don't think that the entire market is collapsing if you hear that some of their numbers go down, some of the big 3. It's a sign of the times. We're going to see some volatility there, but we see some ongoing strength. Just the regular watchers and listeners to the show will know that I predicted this last week. On the culture side, well, those of you who have been following the episodes and the seasons of Stranger Things, and it's mainly been the 18 to 34-year-old crowd here, as much as we know that group likes to watch just short TikTok reels. Stranger Things has had a huge audience. It's winding up into its final season, about that little American town and all the weird stuff going on underneath the town, the sci-fi stuff. So people are going to be wondering about the relationships that were developed by the individuals there. Stranger Things winding down, and let's see what it actually holds. The big movie that's sweeping the Christmas ratings right now, Zootopia 2. Zootopia 2, for those of you who missed it, Zootopia was kind of a comedy approach, and it's interesting how even in an animated version, they like to take the thing of 2 cops working together and, not getting along so well and then getting along well and going through all the escapades. Well, some interesting things developing in Zootopia 2, and I'm not saying don't go to it or don't watch it, but we like to report from a cultural point of view. The 2 cops in Zootopia 2, they actually wind up getting into some of these cartoon figures, into some serious disagreements. So serious that, guess what? They go into therapy. Yes, there we are, cartoon therapy, going to their therapist to resolve the difference. The other thing is there's some concern that it's becoming a little more woke, a little more DEI related, because the message is that the bad guys that they are chasing, the reptiles so-called, actually aren't that bad at all. And as a matter of fact, we should not be looking down or too worried about reptiles just because there's a small group of people who see life differently. We should be far more accepting and inclusive of them. So you can decide if there's some DEI woke messaging there. In Japan, the big announcement in Tokyo on the culture side, every year they announce what the main dolls are going to be that you can buy. Yes, that's right, dolls. This is a tradition that actually goes back centuries. The Hina or Haina dolls that were made, and they had a lot of superstition attached to them. But since the Second World War, it's the Kawaraa dolls, and there's always a big announcement in Tokyo. And the main dolls are taken off of who are the real cultural icons for the year. And that gets a lot of activity, and movie stars and celebrities hope there's going to be a doll made on them. So not surprising that Ichiro Suzuki, the ball player, there's the doll out for him this year. And Seinai Takachi, the first female prime minister of Japan, and I've been talking about the fact she doesn't get the media attention that she should get, a real breakthrough prime minister there. So there's the dolls, folks. We'll see who's going to be buying those. So there's some interest in buying those internationally, not a ton. It's more the message that goes out to the rest of the world of who the good people of Japan are thinking of really deserving of merit. Thanksgiving here. I'm in the U.S. right now, Thanksgiving. And quite a historic holiday, as we know, was actually started by George Washington way back in about 1789. And Thanksgiving following the Civil War and the end sorry, not the Civil War, but the war against the British. And then it was upgraded by Abraham Lincoln in 1863 following the Civil War and the abolishing of slavery. Again, keeping in mind that the United States was one of the first countries in the world to abolish slavery. About 1% of U.S. citizens owned slaves, but it was a wrong thing to do. And the United Kingdom and the United States, the two major countries first abolishing slavery, even before a number of African nations abolished it. So that came into being. And then through the years, the date kept moving around, politicians getting involved and causing problems. FDR, way back as far as in his reign. Sorry, I haven't got the exact date in front of me, but he declared it was going to be for a certain Thursday. That ran into problems, and so it was declared that it was going to be Thanksgiving would be the fourth Thursday of November, and reflecting a time of Thanksgiving. And it's interesting that Canada, when you look at Canada's, was way ahead of the U.S. actually in declaring a Thanksgiving Day. Way back in 1578, before there actually was even a Canada, it was Martin Frobisher. You remember him, one of the first explorers to Newfoundland, and they named a bay after him, Frobisher Bay. He was the first one actually to declare Thanksgiving back in 1578. And then November 6, 1879, that's when Canada actually made it a national holiday, and that date moved around a little. People would get upset when it would move one date to another. It wasn't until 1957, actually, it was an act of parliament that we declared it would be on the second day of October. So not only did we start Thanksgiving Day before the Americans did, there's actually a reason for that. Is because being a colder climate, and Thanksgiving Day in the Canada and U.S. also being tied in with the harvest and thanking God for the good harvest. Of course, our harvest is generally earlier and sooner than the U.S., and so that's why you see it earlier in October. And close out with this interesting thought: legislation now in Quebec that is banning public prayer. So here we've got, on the one hand, we celebrate Thanksgiving nationally, and the wise people, or the wise politicians, so-called, in the province of Quebec are banning public prayer. The history of nations that ban God and ban public prayer, not that exciting to watch. So let's hope the good people of Quebec find a way to deal with this issue. So on Thanksgiving in Quebec, you are allowed to secretly and quietly give thanks in your home, but don't you dare go out on the street and do it. La Belle Province, we wish you all the best and a happy Thanksgiving for our American viewers and listeners, and we'll catch you tomorrow for Black Friday. Might see you at one of the malls. Bye now.